President Obama's commitment to reducing carbon emissions represented a cornerstone of his climate and energy agenda, reflecting his understanding that the consequences of unchecked greenhouse gas emissions posed one of the greatest threats to the environment, public health, and global stability. Central to this commitment was the recognition that carbon emissions, primarily from power generation, transportation, and industrial processes, were driving climate change at an alarming rate. His administration approached this challenge with a multifaceted strategy aimed at both immediate reductions and long-term transformation of the U.S. energy landscape. A key aspect of this strategy involved setting ambitious targets for the reduction of carbon emissions from power plants, which are among the largest contributors to national greenhouse gas output. The Clean Power Plan, introduced during his second term, sought to significantly reduce emissions from existing power plants, particularly those burning coal, by implementing state-specific carbon intensity goals while providing flexibility for states to determine the best approach for compliance. This approach was designed to encourage innovation and investment in cleaner technologies, while still holding utilities accountable for measurable reductions in their environmental impact. In parallel, the Obama administration worked to strengthen fuel efficiency standards for vehicles, recognizing that the transportation sector was another major source of carbon emissions. By increasing the fuel economy requirements for cars and trucks, his policies aimed to reduce the overall carbon footprint of American transportation, while simultaneously saving consumers money on fuel over the long term. These standards were among the most stringent in U.S. history at the time, reflecting a determination to align economic incentives with environmental responsibility. Beyond regulatory measures, the administration understood that achieving meaningful reductions in carbon emissions required fostering the growth of clean energy industries. Investments in solar, wind, hydroelectric, and other renewable sources were prioritized not only for their potential to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, but also for their capacity to create jobs and stimulate economic development. Obama's policies included tax credits, grants, and loan guarantees that lowered the financial barriers for private companies and local governments to invest in renewable infrastructure. This approach reflected a holistic vision in which environmental sustainability and economic growth were not mutually exclusive, but could be mutually reinforcing. By supporting research and development in emerging energy technologies, the administration sought to position the United States as a global leader in the transition to a low-carbon economy. This strategy also acknowledged the need to anticipate and address potential challenges associated with integrating renewable energy into existing energy grids, including intermittency and storage issues, and sought to encourage innovation to overcome these technical hurdles. The health implications of carbon emissions also informed Obama's focus on reducing greenhouse gases. Burning fossil fuels contributes not only to climate change, but also to air pollution, which can exacerbate respiratory conditions, cardiovascular disease, and other health problems. By targeting emissions reductions, particularly from coal-fired power plants and vehicle exhaust, the administration aimed to protect the health of communities across the country, particularly those disproportionately affected by pollution, such as low-income neighborhoods and communities near industrial facilities. This public health framing helped broaden the appeal of climate policies by connecting environmental stewardship directly to quality of life and personal well-being. It also underscored the notion that climate action is not solely an abstract or distant concern, but has immediate, tangible benefits for citizens. International cooperation was another dimension of Obama's carbon reduction strategy. While domestic policies were essential, the administration recognized that climate change is a global issue that requires coordinated action across nations. By demonstrating a strong commitment to reducing U.S. emissions, Obama aimed to build credibility in international climate negotiations and encourage other major emitters to adopt similar targets. His leadership helped pave the way for agreements such as the Paris Climate Accord, which established a framework for global emission reductions and underscored the shared responsibility of nations to act collectively in addressing climate change. This international dimension reinforced the domestic imperative, signaling that U.S. leadership on carbon reduction could influence global norms and standards. Finally, the administration emphasized the importance of measurable progress and accountability. Policies were structured to track emissions reductions rigorously, assess the effectiveness of regulatory and market-based mechanisms, and adjust strategies as needed. This data-driven approach was intended to ensure that carbon reduction targets were not aspirational alone, but achievable and verifiable. By combining regulatory action, economic incentives, technological innovation, public health considerations, and international leadership, Obama's commitment to reducing carbon emissions represented a comprehensive and integrated approach to one of the most pressing challenges of the 21st century, laying the groundwork for continued efforts toward a sustainable and low-carbon future. President Obama's promotion of renewable energy formed a central pillar of his climate and energy strategy, reflecting his belief that the long-term solution to climate change, energy security, and economic growth required a decisive shift away from fossil fuels toward cleaner, sustainable alternatives. This commitment was rooted in the understanding that renewable energy sources such as wind, solar, geothermal, and biofuels offer multiple benefits simultaneously. They reduce carbon emissions, decrease dependence on imported oil, create jobs in emerging industries, and enhance the resilience and diversity of the nation's energy supply. Obama's administration sought to transform the U.S. energy sector not merely through regulation, but by actively fostering innovation and creating economic incentives that would make renewable energy both competitive and widespread. A significant aspect of this strategy was the use of tax incentives, grants, and loan guarantees to stimulate private sector investment in renewable energy infrastructure. By lowering the upfront financial barriers to deploying solar panels, wind turbines, and other clean technologies, these programs encouraged companies, utilities, and municipalities to adopt renewable energy projects that might otherwise have been economically unfeasible. Programs such as the Investment Tax Credit (ITC) for solar energy and the Production Tax Credit (PTC) for wind power were expanded under Obama's administration, providing financial certainty for investors and helping to accelerate the commercialization of these technologies. These incentives also signaled to the market that the federal government was committed to long-term support for renewable energy, fostering confidence among entrepreneurs and venture capitalists to pursue innovations in clean energy technology. In addition to financial incentives, Obama emphasized research and development as a critical driver of renewable energy adoption. His administration invested in cutting-edge technologies designed to improve the efficiency, storage, and distribution of renewable power. For example, advancements in solar panel efficiency, energy storage solutions such as batteries, and smart grid technology were prioritized to address the challenges of intermittent energy supply inherent in solar and wind power. By supporting these technological innovations, the administration aimed to make renewable energy not only environmentally beneficial, but also reliable and cost-competitive with traditional fossil fuels. Research funding also targeted emerging sectors such as advanced biofuels, tidal energy, and enhanced geothermal systems, reflecting a forward-looking approach that anticipated the future energy landscape and sought to diversify the renewable energy portfolio. Obama's promotion of renewable energy was also closely tied to economic development and job creation. The administration framed the expansion of clean energy as a pathway to building a modern, sustainable economy. By incentivizing the construction of renewable energy facilities, developing domestic manufacturing of solar panels and wind turbines, and supporting workforce training programs, the policies created opportunities for employment in both urban and rural areas. The administration highlighted that these jobs were not only environmentally beneficial, but also provided stable, high-quality employment in a rapidly growing sector of the economy. This narrative connected climate policy directly to economic opportunity, helping to build bipartisan support in certain regions and among stakeholders interested in economic revitalization. Another key component of Obama's renewable energy strategy was the integration of these technologies into federal operations and infrastructure. The administration implemented initiatives to increase energy efficiency and renewable energy use across federal buildings, military bases, and government facilities. By leveraging the federal government's purchasing power, these efforts provided a tangible demonstration of commitment to clean energy, while also generating demand that could help reduce costs and encourage wider adoption. This approach showcased the feasibility and benefits of renewable energy implementation on a large scale, serving as a model for states, cities, and private enterprises. Obama also understood that expanding renewable energy required active collaboration with states, municipalities, and private stakeholders. Through partnerships and public-private initiatives, his administration encouraged local governments and utilities to invest in clean energy projects tailored to regional resources and needs. Wind energy development, for example, was promoted in the Midwest, where wind resources are abundant, while solar energy initiatives were emphasized in the Southwest. This decentralized approach allowed for greater flexibility and responsiveness to local conditions, maximizing the efficiency and impact of renewable energy investments. Moreover, the promotion of renewable energy under Obama was closely linked to broader environmental and climate goals. By reducing reliance on coal, oil, and natural gas, renewable energy deployment directly contributed to lowering greenhouse gas emissions, improving air quality, and mitigating the impacts of climate change. The administration consistently framed renewable energy adoption as a key tool for addressing global climate challenges, demonstrating that national energy policy could align with global environmental responsibility. This messaging also reinforced the United States' leadership role in international climate negotiations by showing a tangible domestic commitment to clean energy transition. Finally, Obama's efforts in renewable energy emphasized long-term sustainability and resilience. Beyond immediate economic and environmental benefits, his policies aimed to create a durable energy system capable of adapting to future challenges, including rising energy demand, climate-induced disruptions, and technological evolution. By investing in diverse energy sources, supporting innovation, and promoting widespread adoption, the administration sought to lay the foundation for an energy future that is cleaner, more secure, and more economically dynamic. The vision extended beyond simple compliance with regulations. It sought to redefine the American energy landscape in a way that is environmentally responsible, economically viable, and globally influential. This comprehensive promotion of renewable energy highlighted the Obama administration's strategic approach, combining financial incentives, technological innovation, economic development, government leadership, local engagement, and climate responsibility to create a sustainable pathway toward a low-carbon energy future. It was a recognition that tackling climate change required not only reducing emissions, but also fundamentally transforming the way energy is produced, consumed, and valued in the President Obama's international climate leadership, was a defining element of his broader strategy to address climate change, reflecting his belief that the global nature of the crisis demanded cooperation and coordinated action among nations. He recognized early on that while domestic policies to reduce carbon emissions were critical, the United States could not solve climate change alone. Greenhouse gas emissions do not respect national borders, and rising global temperatures have consequences that affect every country. As a result, Obama worked tirelessly to position the United States as a credible and constructive leader in international climate negotiations, leveraging diplomacy, innovation, and coalition building to encourage ambitious climate action worldwide. A central achievement of Obama's international climate leadership was his pivotal role in the Paris Agreement of 2015. This landmark accord brought together nearly every nation in the world to commit to reducing greenhouse gas emissions, with the goal of limiting global warming to well below 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, and to pursue efforts to limit it to 1.5 degrees. Obama personally engaged with world leaders to build consensus, demonstrating that the United States was willing to take responsibility for its emissions while encouraging other major emitters to follow suit. He framed U.S. participation as both a moral and pragmatic imperative, morally because of the need to protect vulnerable populations from the effects of climate change, and pragmatically because leadership on clean energy innovation and emission reductions could provide economic and technological advantages for the United States in the emerging global low-carbon economy. His administration's commitment to the Paris Agreement signaled to the international community that the United States was prepared to lead by example, setting domestic emission reduction targets and investing in renewable energy technologies at home. Beyond the Paris Agreement, Obama actively engaged with key international partners to secure bilateral and multilateral agreements aimed at cutting emissions. For instance, the historic U.S.-China Climate Agreement in 2014 marked the first time the two largest carbon-emitting countries committed to specific national targets for reducing emissions. Obama's engagement with China demonstrated a sophisticated understanding of geopolitics and the importance of collaboration with major emitters. By establishing trust and creating frameworks for accountability, he was able to encourage China to invest in clean energy and announce ambitious climate goals, which in turn influenced other countries to raise their own commitments. This approach highlighted Obama's strategic use of diplomacy to generate momentum for global climate action and to overcome skepticism or inertia in key regions. Obama's international leadership also extended to mobilizing financial and technical support for developing countries, which often face the greatest risks from climate change while having the least capacity to respond. Through initiatives such as the Green Climate Fund, the administration sought to channel resources toward renewable energy projects, climate adaptation measures, and capacity building efforts in vulnerable nations. By helping to fund clean energy projects and resilience programs abroad, Obama aimed to demonstrate that the United States climate commitments were comprehensive, addressing both mitigation and adaptation, and fostering goodwill and cooperative relationships with countries around the world. This approach emphasized climate justice, recognizing that effective solutions require addressing inequalities in both responsibility and vulnerability. In addition to formal agreements, Obama's international climate leadership involved public diplomacy and advocacy on the global stage. He consistently used high-profile platforms, including the United Nations General Assembly, G7 and G20 meetings, and climate summits, to articulate the urgency of climate action and to highlight the benefits of transitioning to a low-carbon economy. By framing climate change as an issue of shared responsibility, economic opportunity, and moral duty, he sought to influence public opinion and governmental policy worldwide. His speeches emphasized that technological innovation, investment in clean energy, and adherence to international commitments could create jobs, reduce pollution, and foster sustainable economic growth, thereby linking environmental goals with broader societal benefits. Another key component of Obama's approach was establishing mechanisms for transparency and accountability in international climate commitments. The Paris Agreement, for example, included a framework for countries to report on their emissions, track progress, and periodically update their targets. Obama supported these mechanisms because he understood that credibility and trust were essential for successful global cooperation. By insisting on measurable outcomes and encouraging peer accountability, his administration sought to ensure that international commitments translated into real-world reductions in greenhouse gas emissions, rather than remaining aspirational pledges. Obama's international climate leadership also reflected an understanding of the interconnectedness of climate issues with other global challenges, such as economic development, energy security, and public health. By addressing climate change within a broader context of sustainable development, he positioned U.S. policy as multidimensional, recognizing that investments in renewable energy and emission reductions could simultaneously enhance economic growth, reduce reliance on fossil fuels, and improve public health outcomes. This holistic perspective helped build coalitions of support among countries with diverse priorities and strengthened the effectiveness of international climate initiatives. Ultimately, Obama's efforts in international climate leadership laid the groundwork for a more coordinated global response to climate change. By combining diplomacy, finance, technology transfer, public advocacy, and rigorous accountability mechanisms, he sought to create a framework in which countries could collectively reduce emissions, invest in clean energy, and prepare for the impacts of a warming world. His leadership demonstrated that the United States could play a pivotal role in shaping global climate policy, fostering collaboration among nations, and inspiring action through both example and engagement. In doing so, Obama not only advanced immediate climate goals, but also established enduring structures for international cooperation that continue to influence global climate efforts today. President Obama's approach to balancing energy development with environmental protection was a defining feature of his climate and energy policy, reflecting a pragmatic understanding that the United States needed to meet growing energy demands while simultaneously mitigating the environmental impacts of fossil fuel consumption. Unlike a purely regulatory or purely market-driven approach, Obama sought to create policies that encouraged economic growth, ensured energy security, and safeguarded natural resources, all within a framework that prioritized sustainability. This balance was particularly challenging given the historical reliance on coal, oil, and natural gas as dominant energy sources in the United States, which were deeply integrated into the economy, job market, and national infrastructure. Nevertheless, Obama's policies were designed to transition the nation toward cleaner energy without abruptly disrupting existing energy systems or compromising economic stability. One of the key strategies in achieving this balance was the implementation of more rigorous environmental regulations on traditional energy sources. Coal-fired power plants, in particular, were targeted through initiatives such as the Mercury and Air Toxics Standards, which limited harmful emissions of mercury, arsenic, and other pollutants, while the Clean Power Plan established goals for reducing carbon emissions from the electricity sector. These measures were designed to reduce the environmental and public health costs associated with fossil fuel use without abruptly shutting down energy production. By imposing clear science-based standards, the administration provided energy producers with both a regulatory framework and sufficient time to adapt, incentivizing the adoption of cleaner technologies and emissions control systems. This approach reflected Obama's belief that environmental protection and energy development could be mutually reinforcing rather than mutually exclusive. At the same time, Obama recognized that an immediate and total shift away from fossil fuels was neither practical nor economically feasible, given the nation's dependence on these resources for electricity, transportation, and industrial production. Consequently, his administration supported the responsible development of oil and natural gas resources, including hydraulic fracturing and offshore drilling, but coupled this with stricter safety and environmental standards. Measures were introduced to prevent spills, protect water quality, and mitigate methane leaks, ensuring that fossil fuel extraction could continue in a manner that minimized harm to ecosystems and communities. By taking this measured approach, Obama sought to balance energy security with environmental stewardship, acknowledging that energy needs had to be met while gradually reducing the carbon intensity of production. Natural gas, in particular, was positioned as a transitional fuel in the shift toward a low-carbon energy system. It produces significantly lower carbon dioxide emissions than coal when burned for electricity, making it an effective bridge technology, while renewable energy capacity and storage solutions continue to expand. Obama's policies encouraged investment in natural gas infrastructure, such as pipelines and combined cycle power plants, but emphasized that this investment should complement, not replace, the growth of renewable energy. By framing natural gas as a temporary and cleaner alternative to coal, the administration sought to reduce overall emissions in the near term while laying the foundation for a long-term transition to fully sustainable energy sources. Another critical component of balancing energy development with environmental protection was promoting energy efficiency across sectors. Obama's administration implemented stringent fuel efficiency standards for vehicles and encouraged building efficiency through programs like Energy Star and federal incentives for green construction. Improving energy efficiency helped reduce overall demand for fossil fuels, decreased emissions, and lowered costs for consumers and businesses. These measures were integral to balancing development and protection because they allowed economic activity to continue and grow while simultaneously reducing the environmental footprint of energy consumption. The administration also focused on mitigating the environmental impact of energy development through investment in cleaner technologies and emissions reduction innovations. Carbon capture and storage (CCS) technologies, advanced emissions control systems, and grid modernization were promoted to reduce the ecological impact of traditional energy production. By incentivizing the private sector to innovate in these areas, the administration aimed to achieve a sustainable balance where energy production could meet national needs without undermining environmental quality. This strategy demonstrated Obama's understanding that technology and innovation were essential tools for reconciling competing priorities. In addition to regulatory and technological strategies, Obama's policies emphasized collaboration with states, industry, and local communities. Recognizing that energy and environmental challenges are often context-specific, the administration allowed states flexibility in how they met emissions and safety standards while encouraging best practices and innovation. Public engagement, transparent planning processes, and incentives for local renewable energy projects were used to ensure that communities directly impacted by energy development had a voice in decision-making. This participatory approach helped mitigate environmental risks and fostered public trust, illustrating that balancing energy and environmental goals required inclusive governance as well as technical solutions. Moreover, Obama's policies sought to integrate economic and environmental planning in a way that supported long-term sustainability. By aligning incentives for clean energy development with existing energy infrastructure and gradually phasing out the most polluting technologies, the administration aimed to create a pathway that would maintain economic stability, preserve jobs, and enhance energy security while achieving measurable environmental benefits. This careful calibration demonstrated a recognition that abrupt transitions could create economic dislocation, whereas a gradual, well-managed approach could achieve both environmental and developmental objectives. In essence, President Obama's approach to balancing energy development and environmental protection represented a comprehensive and nuanced strategy. It acknowledged the nation's historical dependence on fossil fuels, while setting a clear trajectory toward cleaner, more sustainable energy. By combining regulatory measures, technological innovation, economic incentives, energy efficiency, state and community engagement, and transitional strategies, his administration sought to meet the country's energy needs in a manner that protected public health, preserved natural resources, and mitigated climate change. This balanced approach reflected a long-term vision in which economic development and environmental stewardship were complementary goals, rather than competing priorities, setting a framework for sustainable energy policy in the United States. President Obama's emphasis on empowering communities and promoting public engagement in climate and energy policy was a critical element of his overall strategy, reflecting a recognition that sustainable change requires both government leadership and active citizen participation. While regulatory frameworks, technological innovation, and international agreements were essential, Obama understood that lasting progress depended on mobilizing individuals, local governments, and private entities to take ownership of energy efficiency, renewable energy adoption, and climate action. By fostering a culture of engagement and accountability, his administration sought to ensure that policies were not only top-down mandates but also embraced and implemented at the grassroots level, creating broad-based momentum for environmental sustainability. A central aspect of this approach was the establishment of programs and initiatives designed to involve states, cities, and local communities in achieving national climate goals. The Clean Power Plan, for example, provided flexibility for states to design their own pathways to reduce emissions from power plants, recognizing that local conditions, energy resources, and infrastructure vary significantly across the country. By allowing states to create tailored plans, the administration encouraged innovation, experimentation, and a sense of ownership over climate policies. This decentralized approach not only increased the likelihood of compliance, but also fostered local solutions that could serve as models for other regions, creating a ripple effect of best practices across the nation. In addition to state-level engagement, Obama's administration focused on empowering local communities to participate directly in clean energy and sustainability initiatives. Programs supporting community-based renewable energy projects, energy efficiency retrofits for public buildings, and local climate adaptation plans were expanded under his leadership. These initiatives often involved partnerships between municipal governments, private companies, nonprofits, and residents, creating collaborative networks that facilitated knowledge sharing, resource pooling, and the scaling of successful projects. By encouraging local action, Obama's policies demonstrated that climate solutions are not confined to federal or international arenas, but are achievable at the community level, where their benefits are immediately tangible, from lower energy bills to improved air quality. Public education and outreach were also key components of fostering engagement. The administration emphasized the importance of informing citizens about the causes and consequences of climate change, as well as practical steps they could take to reduce their own carbon footprint. Educational campaigns highlighted energy efficiency measures, such as upgrading insulation, using Energy Star appliances, reducing water consumption, and adopting renewable energy sources where feasible. By connecting environmental action to personal and financial benefits, the administration aimed to motivate behavior change and cultivate a culture of sustainability. This focus on education extended to schools, universities, and community organizations, promoting awareness among younger generations and empowering future leaders to prioritize climate action in their professional and personal lives. Another dimension of public engagement involved fostering partnerships with the private sector. Obama's administration recognized that businesses play a critical role in energy production, consumption, and innovation. Through incentives for clean energy investment, support for energy-efficient technologies, and recognition programs for sustainable corporate practices, the administration encouraged businesses to align their operations with climate goals. Public-private collaboration not only amplified the impact of federal policies, but also showcased the economic viability of sustainable practices, helping to shift market norms toward renewable energy adoption and responsible environmental stewardship. Equity and inclusion were also central to Obama's vision of community engagement. His administration emphasized that climate policies should address the needs of vulnerable populations, including low-income communities and historically marginalized groups that often bear the greatest environmental burdens. Programs aimed at reducing energy costs, improving access to clean energy, and enhancing resilience against climate impacts were designed to ensure that all citizens could benefit from sustainability initiatives. By highlighting the social dimension of climate action, Obama sought to make engagement inclusive and equitable, reinforcing the notion that collective action is strengthened when everyone has the opportunity to participate and contribute. Obama also leveraged technology and digital platforms to increase public engagement. Tools for tracking energy usage, monitoring emissions, and sharing sustainability data allowed individuals, communities, and organizations to measure their impact and participate more actively in climate solutions. Social media campaigns, interactive websites, and open data initiatives made climate information more accessible, enabling citizens to make informed decisions and advocate for local and national policies. By integrating technology into public engagement efforts, the administration not only enhanced transparency and accountability, but also empowered people to take concrete actions in their own lives and communities. The administration's focus on empowerment extended to workforce development and skills training. Recognizing that the transition to a low-carbon economy requires a trained workforce, Obama supported programs that prepared workers for jobs in renewable energy, energy efficiency retrofitting, and green construction. These efforts provided tangible pathways for individuals to participate in and benefit from the nation's energy transition, linking community engagement with economic opportunity. By emphasizing both environmental and economic benefits, the administration fostered broader support for climate initiatives and helped build a sustainable foundation for long-term action. Ultimately, Obama's strategy of empowering communities and promoting public engagement reflected a belief that meaningful climate action requires collaboration across all levels of society. Federal policies provided direction and resources, but their success depended on the active participation of states, cities, businesses, nonprofits, and individual citizens. By fostering awareness, enabling local initiatives, encouraging private sector involvement, promoting equity, leveraging technology, and supporting workforce development, Obama created a multi-layered approach that mobilized communities to take responsibility for their energy consumption and environmental impact. This approach reinforced the principle that climate solutions are most effective when they are inclusive, participatory, and locally grounded, ensuring that the transition to a sustainable, low-carbon future is both achievable and resilient.